Welcome back to the channel. On this episode, we are going to break down and go over the installation process of a Mega Mantis kit and also cover the new design changes that we're making to the Mega Mantis kit. This is our biggest seller, most popular kit. Between our regular Mantis kit and the Mega Mantis kit for the 350, we've sold 800 kits total, globally, internationally. We ship them everywhere, the majority being within the US and Canada, but we also ship them all over the world. So right off the bat, the upper control arms are unchanged. The main difference that we've done over the last couple of years is about a year and a half ago. We started using a very high strength alloy steel that has been applied to every single kit, including this one. So the uppers are made of that high strength alloy steel. The rest of the kit is also comprised of that material. You'll see the knuckle has changed quite a bit. For simplicity's sake, for strength and integrity, and so on and so forth, that are the reasons behind the knuckle change, but the geometry of the kit and the knuckle itself remains the same. We've been able to give it just slightly more wheel clearance so that a different size offset. Usually you had to run a fairly low offset to clear the knuckle. Now you can get away with a plus 20, maybe a plus 25 wheel depending on the width, opening up your options for running different front wheels. But other than that, you have the same adjustable Ackerman, and ratio and trail and everything is the same as the original one. So that's the differences with the knuckle. The control arm is probably the largest difference. Instead of a two-piece design, we have changed to a single piece. So taking a look at this, it's got a couple things that need to be noted. We have on-car adjustable caster where we can adjust the length of this heim joint, which is going to pivot the arm and adjust your caster at this section. You can also adjust the caster using the upper control arm or the lower control arm. You want to check and make sure what you're adjusting so that you're not offsetting the tie rod too far if you do all of your caster from the lower, but it is available to do while on the car. This is a huge bonus over even the standard kit that we sell or any other kit available, that you can do this on the car. You can also remove the arm without dropping the crossmember brace, which takes quite a bit of time. You can simply back this adjuster out completely and this arm will disconnect from the chassis there, and then you can just pull this bolt out and then the whole lower will come off. The other change to note is that we are now running a uniball or spherical bearing in the end of the control arm, which is going to give us one less thing that we'll be able to loosen. So it's just one less thing that you need to check for during your bolt check process. So this will connect to here. We've given it a pre-angle of around 4 degrees on the cup. This is just to give the best articulation range for this bearing so that there will be no binding whatsoever on that joint. It's a very easily replaced bearing with a snap ring in the bottom. Third thing to note is that we have this shock mount that is going to give us the ability to change our motion ratio and improve on tuning your suspension. So if you are running let's say you're running a 10K spring in the front of your 350Z and you've set up your car with this located in the center position. If you find that the car needs to be stiffer in the front, you could simply move this and it's going to moderately change the ratio of that spring, giving you more compression without having to change the actual spring. This is really easily done trackside, and if you needed it to be stiffer, you can simply move this on its furthest position towards the knuckle, and that is going to make your suspension effectively stiffer. And then you can dampen and fine-tune the compression of the spring using, if you have a single adjustment, or if you have rebound and compression adjustment with a two-way, you can simply adjust those on the coilover while changing your effective spring rate using the motion ratio. So this is going to be huge for guys that want to fine-tune their suspension for different tracks, different applications. And then if you have a sway bar, You've got your ratio adjustments for the sway bar here as well. The sway bar is simply going to come down and the linkage is going to go through any one of these 4 holes, giving you stiffest to softest positions. The tie rod passes underneath the control arm rather than our old design, which goes under and over. So removal and adjustments are also easily done because you can simply drop the tie rod and it will be free from the arms. And then the last point to note would be that these are now locking bungs, which do not require a jam nut anymore. So this is just, again, reducing the amount of things that are going to loosen during use. So you can simply tighten this bolt, which is going to pinch the heim joint, and this will keep the whole joint tight rather than having a jam nut, because a jam nut in this area of the subframe is pretty hard to get at with a wrench because the jam nut is it's an 1.125" wrench, which is pretty big, and oftentimes you can't get it on the nut and you don't have enough room to tighten it to the torque that would be required for it to never loosen again. So you can do things like get a crow's foot with an extension and play around with it that way. But we're trying to make these the best possible solution for everyone that's using it. So those are the changes, the differences, and what you guys can be expecting over the next couple of months when we integrate this into our sales on our website and not discontinue the original design. Because we make everything ourselves, it is easy for us to continue to fulfill orders or help guys that have, if you get in an accident and you need the old design compression arm or whatever, super easy for us to continue to support that design. So going to this is the way of the future. We are constantly trying to improve and perfect everything that we make while still servicing those who have supported us and bought from us in the past. So continuing on with stuff like that is really important to us, and then also improving the design and making things better is just as important. So let's go install this on our car. All right, let's get into it. I already said that we're gonna do it, so. We're gonna start with the upper control arm because this car has factory fenders and I'm not going for a full width FD stance. I've started with the heim joints threaded all the way in. First thing you wanna do, oh, Jack, we're missing our hammer. Oh, no, we're not. You already put it over here. Because these heim joints are brand new, they start out just a little bit stiff. So you're gonna wanna straighten them out and about. Americans will have fun with that one. It's easier to tighten these when the arm's hanging, so there isn't other things in the way. Okay, once you get that tight, because the heim joints are so new, it will more than likely support the weight of the knuckle. So this next bit is pretty easy. We're just gonna snug that up, kind of hold the knuckle and stuff out of the way. Then when we put the lower on, we can just connect the lower to the knuckle easily. So the lower goes on like so. Our next step is to connect the compression arm to the stud. Because we use cross member brace, I'm just gonna take the corner of my brace, put it on like so, and then take the nut. So if you had the full cross member like the OEM one, you would probably just throw the nut on just to hold the arm in place until you can put the whole thing back on. That's the nice thing about this cross member brace though, is the corners are separate from the center, so I'm able to just throw this up in place, snug it on, and then I can tighten everything up later, but this is able to be locked right into place. And because this kit is on-car adjustable, I don't need to worry about taking it off again. So I'm just gonna find the bolts that I used. I think it's the one right by your foot. Okay, and then I can tighten this. And this doesn't really need to be touched again. Okay, so to adjust the caster, you can see that this allows for a range of adjustment. And I can, if I wanted to lock it in there, I could, okay? If I wanted to lock it in much closer, I could do that as well. So it's a really nice adjustment that this kit is going to be coming with. Our next step would be to connect the shock to the lower, and then our knuckle we can swing in place and put right on the ball joint here. So we'll put our spacers in place, bring the knuckle down. There we go. Put that on. And generally, in about 10 minutes, it's kind of what you're left with. Pretty sweet. So, the steps after this are connect the shock, put the bearing on, put your caliper and rotor on, connect our tie rod. We're gonna tighten up our Ackerman plates, connect everything in the rack, and then it's done. Like, it really is that simple. Okay, so we're throwing the bearing on using the 4 provided bolts, installed from the back. So we'll tighten that up. That wasn't as tight as it looks. Good. Sweet. Okay, so we'll tighten all those up. We're running this in the stiffest position available on the arm because we do not have a sway bar mount or a sway bar. This car was actually in a front end accident and we just kind of quickly salvaged it to run our test products. So because we're not running a sway bar, we're gonna make it as stiff as possible on either side. It's kind of a band-aid for the problem, but we will be adding a sway bar very soon, just not today. Luckily, the motion ratio is very easy to adjust, so I could easily add a sway bar and then move the spring in. We're gonna tighten these up. We need that Allen key that you had. There's no ball on this one. Now we will tighten down the bolts. We'll tighten up our adjustment here. And then we just need our little, what is it, 13 here?
14.
No, 13. No, it doesn't. It's a 1/2 inch actually. We're just tightening up our pinch joint here. So instead of a jam nut, we're easily able to access this versus having a jam nut here. The next order of business is to connect up the tie rod setup, caliper, rotor, wheel, tighten up the top, or just check. We did tighten pretty much everything, but then we're done. So tie rod setup. So because we relocated the steering rack forward about 38 millimeters, we make these straight rack adapters, typically for BMWs, Supras, RX-7s, and a couple other cars. We're able to run them on a relocated rack configuration. So basically this just slides inside. We put a button head bolt through. This is important on the Supras because the rack actually goes inside about that far. So we had to make one that this would recess and sit flush with the outside diameter. But anyways, we're gonna use that here because it's a nice, clean and tidy setup. Perfect, so we're just going to throw this in. Okay, to tighten it, you're gonna wanna put a adjustable on the rack and then your wrench on the other side, because these do need to be relatively tight. Good. Orientation of it doesn't really matter because the loads are in line. It could be upside down, backwards, doesn't matter, but I'm gonna put the bolt in through the back because it makes it easy to take out and put back in. So my next order of business, I always get that wrong. Thread these on about that far. Then I'm going to put it on here. This is the left hand, this is the right hand. Get it freed up a little bit. Perfect. Go in just a little bit more. Now we can put our spacers in. Now I can install this into our rack adapter. Tie rods are on, rotor, caliper. Can't turn it. Just the uppers, then we're done. We'll just zip tie that up there. Okay, and then we need a nut there. And that gives you just a very rough idea. Lead wheel. That's a rough idea. We still got to adjust our toe and do a couple things. This is running on the 0 Ackerman position. That's pretty much the install of the new kit. And fitment wise, because I ran everything at its shortest possible length, to have the wheel perfectly centered, meaning your caster is almost perfect, you pretty much just shorten everything and it'll be almost dead center in the wheel well. So your adjustments to get your caster within spec are going to be really minimal. Fancy. Really fancy. I'm really hot, temperature-wise, really hot. But that's it. Really simple, really solid. I'm excited to go test it out. Everything needs to be worked in pretty hard out on the track. Get these brand new joints loosened up a little bit. About the rack relocation and the new kit. Testing out before we put her up for sale to the public is going to be really sweet, really sweet. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. The next one, we're going to take it to the track and put her through its paces. So, thank you for watching. That's another new product here. That's how you install the new product. Those are the differences between the old one and the new one. And that's a wrap. So, see you guys in the next video.